Welcome to another installment of This or That. In this series, I pit two movies against each other, see which of them is more popular among audiences, and force my journalist colleagues to reveal whether they agree with public opinion or not. I am Jeanette, an entertainment journalist and critic, and this is my friend Brandon, also an entertainment journalist and critic. Hey, Brandon.
Hello.
How's it going?
It's going well. Excited to talk about two movies that mean a lot to me as from when I was a kid, but also that I think are kind of dumb. But that's kind of the beauty of them.
Fair enough. And that is great foreshadowing because today we are comparing Tim Burton's Batman's movies, Batman 1989 and Batman Returns 1992. So to start, I'm going to break down the stats to see which of these movies audiences have deemed their favorite. Do you have any guesses?
I think 89 is more popular. I think that's definitely the one that had the better box office. That's the one that had the better reception with fans. I think Returns probably. Spoiler warning, I'm going to be arguing in favor of Returns, but I don't think the general audience enjoyed Returns as much, given that it was followed by Batman Forever. So.
Fair. Yeah, no, you'd be right, which I was kind of surprised, at least by box office, because I feel like usually when you have like a sequel in the first movie is really popular, usually you see like a huge kind of jump in box office because people are coming in like, hey, I want to see more of that. But yeah, I didn't even bother adjusting for inflation here because Batman 89 made more than Returns. It made 251 million domestically, and Returns was at 162. So a pretty massive win there. And as for critical consensus, I mean, they're pretty tight. Returns actually ranks higher on Rotten Tomatoes, which I get it. I think that movie has almost like a cult kind of if you get it, you get it. 89 is higher in everything else. IMDb, Letterboxd, that kind of thing. So I'm going to declare 89 the audience favorite for the purpose of this show.
Well, it's fascinating because there's been a lot of really good breakdowns of it. I think I wrote a piece about it back when we used to work at CBR. I wrote there was a real pushback to Batman Returns even before it came out because it was so much of the film, especially after the first film was so popular with younger audiences and kids and families and everything. There was a huge marketing push to kind of push Batman Returns, and Batman Returns is not for kids. That's kind of the trick with that movie. There is so much of that movie that is just fully inappropriate for children. It's a movie where Batman, I think, kills 5 dudes. That's and that's low level of what we're talking about. And so there's this really fascinating story about how McDonald's had basically commissioned a lot of Happy Meal tie-ins to Batman Returns, and there was a genuine letter writing campaign from irate parents who just were really thrown by the Batman film that they had taken their children to, had Penguin sexualizing the interns who were working for him, and Catwoman's dominatrix routine, and so much of the film is so aimed at mature audiences that there was a genuine backlash in a way that pre-social media, it was a social media response. And I think that's it wouldn't surprise me if Batman Returns had a bigger opening weekend than the first Batman, but it definitely didn't have that staying power that helps turn something like a blockbuster like that into such a big hit. And that's it makes sense to me that Batman Returns faltered, and it's because I think it's exactly kind of when you notice it, if you get it, you get it. It's a Tim Burton movie through and through. And that's not going to do as well as the much broader blockbuster elements of Batman 89.
Oh, yeah, totally. And I think Batman 89 has more of that 66 DNA in it, where it just feels a bit campier. That version of the Joker is very close to Cesar Romero's Joker, and it's a little bit silly. So I can definitely understand why the tonal change in Batman Returns would kind of alienate younger audiences and the parents bringing those younger audiences to the movies. I think, so I know you said you're arguing for Batman Returns. I'm also arguing for Batman Returns. And as I said to you off camera, I was I gave 89, I rewatched it again. Just a fair shot. And I like that movie. It's a fine movie for sure. Yeah. I'm sure you do too.
There's a lot to like about it, honestly. There's a lot that's I prefer Batman Returns because I think it's a better, like, the bit is that neither of them are particularly focused on being good adaptations of Batman. Like you said,
It's true.
they're much more based on the '60s show. Like, it's Tim Burton's version of the '60s show. It's there's a lot to like in the first one, but I think the second one is when it really like refines that. Like, if the second one is a Tim Burton movie, whereas the first one kind of is stuck in this nebulous middle space. So you do get stuff like the really campy stuff with Joker, which is a lot of fun, which I really, really like. But then you also get Kim Basinger's like the entirety of the Vicky Vale subplot, and you get like a Bruce Wayne Batman who's just is an odd guy, and it works sometimes. Like Keaton is such a good Bruce Wayne, but he's not that great at Batman, at least in that film. I think he gets better over time. But like there's a lot of elements about '89 that don't quite land, which is why I prefer Batman Returns. Like, it also helps that Batman Returns is a Christmas movie. So like,
no, it's fun to revisit. And I agree. I think Keaton, it's not really Keaton's fault. I think he's great in the role, but I think the writing there's not a lot to work with. And that's kind of my hot take about '89 in general is I think it's a poor showcase of Batman and Joker as characters, not Michael Keaton or Nicholson's performances. But I think the timeline is so condensed in Batman '89. Like, it is a year one Batman story. You know, he's not homies with Gordon yet. There's no bat signal. The people of Gotham aren't sure if they like him or not. And then within like a 3-day span from when he meets Vicky Vale, that's what it feels like. They have like one day, they sleep together, and then Alfred's immediately like,
if not now, when?
Hey, tell her your secret. And I'm like, no. And then by the end of that movie, Joker's dead. And Joker is his like ultimate villain. So it just kind of feels like there's nowhere to go. I think if I hadn't seen other Batman movies or material, things like The Dark Knight, obviously, things like Hush and like, you know, The Killing Joke, I think I would really like '89, but I feel like there's some like kind of like depth in psychology missing that really like fleshes out Batman and Joker's like very interesting dysfunctional dynamic. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree, because I think the thing is it doesn't really have a good idea of who Batman is, what Batman wants, why Batman's doing this. It gives you kind of the origins, and it gives you touches of him as a character, but they're all kind of scattershot. Like, there's moments of meeting Bruce Wayne, and he's just kind of an odd duck, but he's a charming like weirdo, and that's fun. But then you also get stuff like, oh, but maybe he's driven by vengeance. Oh, maybe he's just a guy who hangs upside down at the middle of the night for no reason. And the Joker's even worse, because the Joker at times, like, I wish it was purposeful and they had been playing with something of like the Joker, because it's that super sanity Grant Morrison idea for the Joker in the comics, where the Joker changes personality constantly to kind of explain the different interpretations of the character. And I wish that was the explanation in this film, but it just feels like, you're right, like the script didn't know what kind of Joker it wanted, because sometimes he's the criminal, sometimes he's the fundamental misunderstood artist, sometimes he's the mad scientist. He becomes like Batman's right, like him and Batman are fighting for Vicky's affections and attention, which is a very weird direction for a Batman and Joker conflict, is a love triangle. And like you said, Nicholson is doing so much like heavy lifting and like elevating the material, like everything he does. The museum heist where they're like destroying all the paintings, and then he stops them from destroying the one of Madness, and he's just like, no, I like that one. Like, stuff like that really. There's a lot to. It's what I mean when I say there's a lot to like. There's a lot of individual moments in Batman '89, and those characters work, but they don't come together to form a cohesive story.
Right. No, I totally agree.
Whereas Batman Returns, I think, is also a little bit of a mess, but I think it's a little bit. It's a tighter narrative. It's
a tighter mess.
It's a weird narrative, but it's a tighter narrative. It's much more character focused. Like, you do get a real sense of what everybody wants at any given time. Penguin is a little over the place, but not nearly as much as Joker. And everybody does get like a real sense of resolution and arc and actual character momentum, which makes it a lot easier of a rewatch. Like, Batman '89 is perfect for scenes. Batman Returns is a much better overall film.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think Batman 89 really struggles in its ending as well. I think there's just something there. Every time I get to that, I'm like, ugh, like him going up the tower and there's like pieces of her shoes as if he didn't know she was got like, yes, you're following the only trail there. And there's parts of it that are good. I like Joker like maniacally dancing with her in the background, not caring, because it highlights that sort of unhinged part of him. But the fact he doesn't really have a contingency plan the way we see like the Joker in The Dark Knight does, it kind of just feels, I don't know, too easy in a way. And I also really hate that Batman never tries to save him. He just kind of is okay with him just, you know, dropping to his death.
It's such a weird, like, that's the thing, is I think it's, and this is something I think that does extend to a lot of adaptations of Batman, especially in film. It's weird, especially in Burton, especially doesn't care about that element of the character. Like, I think you can usually tell when somebody really cares about the character because of how much they take into account the no kill rule, the commitment to being a hero. It's one of the reasons I don't know if it's my favorite Batman movie, but I think The Batman by Matt Reeves with Robert Pattinson, I think he's the one who he's the filmmaker who clearly has the most reverence for the material, because his is so rooted in creating a Batman who's going to risk his life to save people, who has to reckon with the rage and vigilantism that comes inherently with the character, and then having to actually make that a theme of the film. Whereas Tim Burton's like, why Batman would kill people? Why wouldn't he kill people?
Like when he blows that guy up with a bomb and returns.
it's the smile he's got. It's when he hits the guy with. My favorite is when he just activates the Batmobile and just lights a guy on fire.
Like, yeah, like why not?
Yeah, like it's such a weird, like that's a Batman to be scared of. He's murdering people. Him and the Snyder Batman are just so murder happy in a way that is really weird.
Yeah, they don't care at all. I mean, I'd argue like the Dark Knight Batman has no like reverence for public property damage, but other than that, he's pretty good. But yeah, going down the street on that motorcycle where he's like knocking everyone's mirrors off the car, I'm always like, God damn it, I'd be so mad if that was my car.
I went to a school in Chicago, and so much of like Dark Knight especially really feels like a Chicago, like they really lean into the Chicago vibes of it. And so my wife and I would joke, and a bunch of our friends would always joke about how infuriating it would be to be in the city with that version of Batman. Because just being on the red line and just having to hear the doo-doo, the train will experience a 20-minute delay because of a Joker sighting. And just like, it would be like, that's, yeah.
That's really great. And I think that's really an interesting point, because I think like one thing that Burton's, both of these movies, but especially Returns, I think Tim Burton really finds his like dark, whimsical style in Return. But like when you compare it to something like The Dark Knight or even Matt Reeves' The Batman, I think those movies are kind of like imagining Batman in our world. Whereas I think Tim Burton's not really concerned about that. He's like creating his own world. He's like, oh no, this is like what Gotham would look like if you were here. So it's realistic at times, but there's also this like uncanniness, like, you know, Danny DeVito and the big rubber ducky coming out. Like it's normal.
It's so Art Deco inspired. It's so retro. You're right, and that's what I mean when I say it feels like a Tim Burton movie. And I think that's to its strength. I think that's a real value to it. Like, is that it really does feel. 89 has traces of Burton, but it doesn't necessarily feel like a Burton film. Batman Returns is 100% a Tim Burton movie. That from the art design to the aesthetic to the character, like the way the characters are directed, to the just so much of that film has his. Like, I'm mixed on auteur theory, but if you do go with it, I do think Batman Returns is a great example of, no, this is what Burton brings to established material and makes it his own. I'm with you. It's not realistic. It feels very cartoony and comic booky, but it's based off of a comic book character who usually works best when he's cartoony. So it's like...
Exactly.
It really works in a way that... Like that's why, like I've got mixed feelings on all the cinematic Batman, and Returns is actually much like, I don't know if it's the best film in the lot, but it's definitely one of the ones I think I appreciate. It's maybe not the one I appreciate the most, but it's one that I definitely really hold up in high regard to the rest of the film adaptations because of that, because it feels very fleshed out and expansive and weird in a way that you don't usually get to see these films.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. It really is the stepping stone between, the 66 Adam West Batman in The Dark Knight. You get kind of both of those worlds in there, where you get like the darker, grittier Batman, as they say, mixed with that campiness. And I do think it works so well. But cinematography aside, I'm going to ask you, in Batman Returns, or I suppose you could, if you want to argue for Batman 89, but who are you giving like the most valuable player award to, like best performance?
Ooh. That's actually a really fun one. I mean, I want to say Christopher Walken because he's clearly having so much fun on Returns. Or I can never remember the actor's name, but the actor who plays Max Schreck's son, because to his credit, he's doing a pretty good Christopher Walken impression to Christopher Walken's face, which is just
yeah, it's like the SNL bit.
Yeah. The real MVP though is honestly probably I would go with Keaton. No, it's hard to say Keaton and Michelle Pfeiffer when they're together. Like I think that those two, that dynamic that they get is the best thing in either movie. I'll die on the hill that I think the best scene in either of those movies is them realizing each other's secret identity. They're both so camp and so ridiculous, but also so very human in that moment. And I think that's what like Michelle Pfeiffer's probably the real MVP of Returns, and I would say of both of them. Just because she's not a very good Catwoman adaptation, but she's a fascinating character and a great performance in her own right. Like I'm glad that Catwoman isn't like her in any other iteration, but it's a shame that we don't get to see that iteration of Catwoman as a result, because she is a fascinating, just madcap collection of traits and characteristics that turns into someone just really fascinating.
Yeah, no, I agree. I wish we got to see her solo Catwoman movie that they had planned, and then that morphed into, I think, the Halle Berry movie. Like,
that did eventually become the Halle Berry one.
Yeah, it would have been really interesting, though. I would have loved to see more of her, because I agree with you. I think Keaton and Pfeiffer together are, like, the chemistry is so powerful, and I know they kind of had, like, an off-screen thing previously, I believe, and they almost didn't end up working together because of it, but it's so good. Like, when you watch 89, I'm like, okay, Vicky Vale, and yeah, whatever, I guess it's fine. But then you get to Returns and you're like, whoa, this is like chemistry. Yeah, it's really good. They do a really good line of balancing that, like, do they want to kiss? Do they want to kill each other? It feels more reminiscent of what some iterations of like the comic book Batman and Catwoman have. I think that's probably the best thing that Burton does in this movie that feels like most related to the comics in a way. Yeah,
true to the text. And it's nothing against Kim Basinger in the first film. No, it's just that she doesn't. The script's not there for her.
It's not. They do weird things with her character. I think she starts really strong, and then they kind of like lose the plot and go a little bit like, I don't know, a little damsel in distress, which is fine. Sometimes that serves the narrative, but yeah, it's messy. But yeah, I'd probably agree with you that like Michelle Pfeiffer is the MVP of Returns, and of both of them. But I mean, I do have a special place in my heart for Danny DeVito as Penguin. I think he's having an absolute blast.
He's having a ball. He's so melodramatic. Like he's giving and he's delivering such stupid dialogue. But I was the number one son, but they treated me like number two. Like that's such a bad line of dialogue for a person to say. But he sells it with the gravitas of like
he does. Like he's not like playing pretend. He's really giving it his all and trying to like, imagine this person. Yeah, I love it too. I love when they do that. Like he does the Elephant Man like famous quote flip at the end where he's like, I am not what is it?
Not a human being, I'm an animal.
And he rips off and I'm like, this is just so good. It's cinematic masterpiece.
It's weird. It's memorable. It's a Batman movie that never feels like another Batman movie, which I think is a struggle for the character in other iterations. I think especially in the 21st century when we've had three very distinct, grounded Batmans, and they do all seem to kind of be following in the same, like treading the same water to differing degrees of success. Whereas this one just feels so off kilter and weird and emotionally raw and resonant in a way that the later two, as well as the previous one, don't. Like, I don't think either of the Schumachers, I don't think the first Batman ever has a character moment as raw, as genuinely emotional as Penguin having that rant, or Catwoman having her freak out with the hell is here in the background when she's like just survived her attack. Or even Bruce just being genuinely really sad at like in the climax where he rips off his stupid rubber mask.
Yeah.
And like is really trying to convince her to let this go and just like we don't have to fight anymore. You then do also I will also say Batman Returns gets extra points for one of the greatest comedic deliveries of any superhero film ever with Bruce Wayne. Why are you dressed like Batman? Like that is genuinely hilarious. Like that is
because he is Batman.
Really that is really funny to have one of your villains say in a climax of a superhero movie.
Oh yeah.
After the unmasking, is he just still doesn't get it.
It's so funny. Yeah, the rip mask is great. But yeah, no, I totally agree with everything you said. Although you better watch your mouth about Batman and Robin and the emotional grit and raw creativity in that movie, and Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze.
Oh, I have a whole thing with Batman and Robin where like I remember it was a big thing for me as a kid. Because Batman and Robin was the very first movie I paid for my own ticket. Like I was such a Batman and Spider-Man fan, and I was maybe like 5 or 6 years old. I was a little kid. It was right before we moved to England, and my father and I went to go see it, and I insisted like I'd saved my allowance so I could buy. It was going to be the first movie I bought a ticket for, and even at that age, I came out of it having I loved Batman the animated series. I had seen Batman 89 and Returns by that point. I had been reading comics already, like Batman comics are one of the major ways I learned to read as a little kid. And I came out disappointed. Disappointed as a child, being like, that wasn't the Batman I wanted.
It's the Batman I want. Okay, so we'll have to talk about that in the future. But
oh yeah, we can have a discussion about. It's nothing against Schumacher. I think it doesn't quite. He wants to be Adam West Batman, and it's not. Is my problem. Is that it doesn't have that level of subtext and satire and real authenticity in the goofiness. But we're getting off track. But like that's we can do a Batman Forever, Batman Forever, Batman Returns, Batman and Robin.
Yes, the many different Batmans. So what is the best scene in Batman Returns that you would, sell people on or tell people like why is it better than 89?
The masquerade scene. I don't. It's very well shot. It's very well directed. The acting is on point. The writing is on point. I think that's when you can tell when the writing is engaged with these characters, and I think it's so much more engaged in Batman Returns overall. But I think that moment in particular really. Straight like that Bruce and Selina moment is really good. The Penguin's arrival and his big villainous monologue is a lot of fun. Is very creepy. Like he's genuinely villainous in that moment in a good way. You get Christopher Walken getting this like that entire masquerade scene. I think is really really strong. The best moment is like I said earlier, the Bruce and Selina bits, but everything around that is also just as good. Like I think that's the best scene in the movie, and I think that's the best individual scene that Burton has done with Batman, which ironically does not have Batman in it. It has Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, that is true. That's a good point. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think if I was going to follow it up with anything, it would be I'm a big sucker for like Michelle Pfeiffer's transformation into Catwoman, and I love a juxtaposition scene. So they kind of give us her like everyday life earlier in the movie, and then we see her come back like all, I guess dead. Technically, and drinking the milk from the carton. It's so messy and it's so good. And I think Michelle Pfeiffer is just like so good at playing those characters that are like slightly unhinged. I mean, she's more than slightly unhinged here, but she kind of has this like dark menace to her and in a lot of her roles. And I think it really shines here. So that's a big one for me. But not to leave 89 behind. I think my favorite scene in that entire movie after rewatching it is Joker's transformation scene. Like it's a really interesting like backlit shot. You see the back of him and there's almost like this Invisible Man-esque homage of him ripping off the bandages and the light bulb swinging. It's scary. And
because it's a horror movie.
It's a horror movie. And I like that Burton after that scene, he like lets us like sit in mystery for a while. He doesn't unveil Joker's face. But then when he does unveil Joker's face, I'm kind of like it just feels like more of the same. And I kind of wish he did something kind of like what he did with Danny DeVito and Penguin. He gives us like this darker, twisted, nasty version of him. And I'm like, I kind of wish he did that in 89, I think that would have been really cool. There was a lot of potential to make that movie really dark, and then we kind of get a retread of the 66 Batman.
Yeah, it's like you say, he's not consistent. Like the horror movie interpretation of the character is really fun, and then he's back to being Jack Nicholson, the criminal character, and then he's the campy Cesar Romero, like artistic criminal interpretation. And I think any of them could have worked if they had been like the full brunt of the character, or if that had been a purposeful decision to really make it so he's unhinged and alternating between these personalities and these motives and these, this modus operandi. But none of it doesn't quite coalesce because they're all so different. They all feel so very different. That's probably the best scene from 89 is that reveal scene. I am also a sucker for the parade, just because I think the parade is, if you're gonna go campy like 89 really does, that's when it goes full camp. It's also one of the only two scenes that really stick out to me as the thing about 66 Batman, which I love Adam West Batman. The thing that makes 66 Batman so good is it's really quietly a great satire. It's got so many great comedic moments and satirical pieces and strange little bits of comedy that give it a real depth that goes beyond just being a kid's adventure, an adventure for all ages, fun action adventure. And I think stuff like the Joker's poisoning of the reporters and then getting to see the report, like that's really scary. And then it swaps to the commercial, and then the next shot is the reporters just without any makeup. Like that's genuinely a really clever piece of satire. Just as him luring everybody out with, I'm just going to give money away. And throwing it all out, and then him having the pistol that's bigger than him, and having Bob, who I have a real soft spot for Bob and Bob's death. Bob's death is one of the funniest gags in either of the movie, and it's all just on the delivery. Like that's Nicholson elevating the material again. The thing is, you're not wrong. The best scene is probably the reveal of Joker, like the horror movie. And I'm with you. I wish we had stuck to that Joker, or if we were going to go camp the whole time, I wish it had been campy Joker the whole time.
Right.
Like, that inconsistency, I think, is a problem with the movie.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think if we learned anything today, it's that Burton, at least in his Batman universe, has issues with consistency, which is interesting because in his later films, I find that not to be the case. But yeah, I guess he just needed some more time to blossom here, because these are some early movies for him. So, that's the thing to remember too. Yeah, you're right. Is that this is following? He's got Pee-wee and he's got Beetlejuice under his belt at this point, and that's about it, I think. Yeah, Beetlejuice would have been like close to like that was 88, right?
It's 87. It might be 88. I'm gonna look that up as out of curiosity. Yeah. No, 88. You're right. Yeah, it was one right after the other. And I think he's got his sense of style is defined by Beetlejuice, but he's not quite as confident of a filmmaker, like an overall director, as he will become. I think Batman Returns is a better showcase for him as a filmmaker. I think he learns a lot on Batman that he applies to Batman Returns. And then after that, after Batman Returns, he goes on to like Edward Scissorhands and Ed Wood, and the campiness of Mars Attacks is building off of that's a movie that does understand that it's camp and commits fully to it, to its betterment. Like that movie's underrated. I think he definitely is still figuring himself out as a feature-length director during the Batman movies, but that is another point to Batman Returns' favor, in my opinion, is that he really does come across as a more confident and competent director. I don't mean he's bad before then, but I think Batman Returns showcases his growth as a filmmaker, whereas Batman clearly is him like, okay, I got a blockbuster. Okay, what do I do?
No, I agree. You can see the confidence even just in how Gotham looks, and the writing isn't quite there, but I do wonder, and I don't know if you know at all, like was Tim Burton, I know like some people who get to work on Batman, they're huge fans of it. And I'm like, was Burton even like really into Batman, or just kind of got handed to him?
No, so I think from my knowledge of it, from my understanding of it, Burton was more of a fan of the 60s show, and that's what you can see that from the camp. You can see that from he grew up in that era when the 60s show was popular. So that was his version of Batman. He was not a comics reader. He was given a couple of Batman comics during the production, like Killing Joke, the Alan Moore Brian Bolland comic had just come out around when this was in development. So I know that became like that's one of the things that Burton really liked about Batman, was like getting to be, I can take this campy and make it really dark, because Killing Joke is such a dark story and it's such a very grim story. And I think that's like he really enjoyed that, and I think it's telling that he really likes the Batman story that is very much you've never read a Batman story before, that's your favorite. If you've read a lot of Batman stories, you're like, Killing Joke's not great.
Yeah.
It's got some good stuff in it, but like when Alan Moore is also like, guys, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I think that's, and you can tell. I think that's the thing, is he does, and I think that's where a lot of the lack of fealty to not even fealty, but like, I don't want to say respect or appreciation. Appreciation, probably the correct term, is that he has a lack of appreciation for that source material in a way that, like, Matt Reeves clearly loves Batman and puts a lot of like thought into it, in a way that I don't think any of the filmmaker has. Whereas Tim Burton, I think, doesn't really care about Batman. He cares about the first one. The first movie really tells that, and then the second movie, I think he's got a real affection for Bruce, and I think he's got a real affection for Gotham, and I think he's got a real affection for Penguin and Catwoman in a way that I don't think he really has for Joker, and definitely doesn't have for Batman as a character. Like, if you're going to consider Batman and Bruce Wayne kind of, I know they're the same person, but they're very different characters in these movies.
For sure.
I think by Returns, though, he's somebody who thinks Bruce Wayne is really compelling, but his version of Bruce Wayne, not like the archetypical, like, overall idea of the character. I think he really likes the weird, the nice weirdo that him and Keaton kind of really solidified.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That's a really interesting way to put it. Because I was just thinking about that, and I'm like, I wonder, he doesn't seem like he has this real deep for like the hard lore. He's kind of like skimming the surface. So that is interesting to know, and it adds context to these movies. Which again are both really fun, but Returns is better. So
that's the thing, is they're both fun. That's the thing, is it's like when we were talking about Mummy and Indiana Jones, where it's like, I don't necessarily want to argue against the Mummy because the Mummy's great, but also like you're doing like best of a good situation. Like if you pick one of them, you're still gonna have fun. Like, I'm not trying to disparage Batman 89. I just think I'm with you. It's not, Batman Returns is the superior film. And
I totally agree. And I think
that love for superheroes is kind of like, you have to really like, not the superhero genre as a whole, but you have to really like the character, and you have to really like that corner of the world for it to really pop. I think those are the examples of the genre that do really, really well, are the ones that, like, you can tell, oh no, they loved making this. Even if you're like, you look at the MCU as well, you can tell which ones they like. There was a real spirit of like, oh, this is good. And like, this is weird, but this is fun. Like, that you can tell that energy is there sometimes, and you can tell when it's not. And I think that you can definitely feel that in 89, but you can also feel the reverse of that in Returns. You can feel that like energy, and even if it's not for Batman himself and Batman the character and Batman the archetype and Batman the franchise, it's there for Burton's vision of what Batman could be, and that gives it a real like fun heart.
No, I agree. It's a tough one for sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm with you. And I'm team Returns. And like I said, I think I would like 89 a lot more if I existed in a world where there wasn't as much like Batman media to consume. I think that I've seen other later and better Batman and Joker interpretations in film. I think harms that movie retrospectively, in my opinion. I think if I went to the movie theater in 89 and like sat down, I'd be like, wow, this is really cool, but there's just something kind of lacking. And I want more from Joker, who's like Batman's biggest adversary of all time. I just really want it to hit on a deeper level. Again, Nicholson's great. I think he does a great job, but as if anyone's surprised, but like, it's missing depth there.
Yeah, so. I would agree with that totally. I think that's the problem with it. And I think that's why Batman Returns is better in comparison, is it has, it's weird, it's goofy, it's tonally all over the place, but it's also much more packaged. It's much tighter of it. It's much more in control of what it's trying to do. Whereas, yeah, I think 89 is kind of throwing darts at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think that's a great place to end it. So is there anything that you want to plug, Brandon? Anywhere people can find your writing?
I mean, you can find my writing on a couple of places. You could find me on Just Watch. You can find me on Screen Rant. You can find me on comicbook.com, TV Brittany F.
So yeah, you can find Brandon everywhere pretty much. The man of many hats. So just to recap, the more popular movie according to audiences is Batman 89. Do Brandon and I agree? We don't. But we agree with each other. We're both picking Batman Returns. But as I always like to say, nobody is right, nobody is wrong. It's just movies, and we will catch you in the next one. Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you. See you all.